Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal. We'll be joined by my co-host Inamaso in just a bit. But first, let's start with our monologue. Do you remember a time in Nigeria when the sound we feared most was that of a blast? Any kind of blast. It was a different kind of violence. One that did not announce itself with warning shots or long convoys of okadas. It arrived without ceremony. It could be a marketplace, a church, a motor park, an ordinary day, and then boom. In an instant, everything changed. The entire country focused on that singular moment. It was loud, it was reverberating. Now, in the early 2010s, at the height of the insurgency driven by groups like Boko Haram, suicide bombing became the signature. It was how attention was seized. It was how fear was spread quickly and widely, and it required less equipment, fewer people. But it delivered maximum psychological impact. At the time, Nigeria struggled with it. Security systems were not built for that kind of threat. Intelligence was slow, coordination was, weaker, and the attacks came in waves. And for a while, it felt like the country was always reacting, always trying to catch up. But over time, something changed. The military adapted, checkpoints, urban surveillance. We had local vigilantes take place. And communities became more alert. They became suspicious. And suspicion, it became a form of protection. And gradually, the frequency of suicide bombing reduced. Not completely, but at least long enough for the country to actually breathe again. And as that happened, the insurgency, once again, it changed too. It moved outward into rural areas, into forests. It focused more on territory. It focused on mass kidnappings, on raids, on direct confrontations with military positions. And the battlefield shifted. The tactics, they evolved. And for a moment, it seemed like a phase had passed once again. But you see, conflict does not end that easily, because what we're seeing now in Maiduguri is not a return to the past. It's a reuse of it. Suicide bombing is back, not because nothing changed, but because enough stayed the same for too long. Long enough for the enemy to simply just go back to their books and say, hey, we tried this before, let's try it again. So now the pressure from military operations forced these groups to think differently. They fragmented. They became smaller, less visible, sometimes even just individuals, each one driven by their own motive. And so they became harder to track. Because when you lose the ability to fight openly, you return to what requires less structure. And that is simple. Access. Access to people, access to routine, access to normal life. Normal life. So the battlefield has shifted again from the bushes to our everyday lives. And that is the danger. Because the system that helped reduce suicide bombing before were built around visibility, was built around checkpoints, around movement, around things you can actually see and try to stop. Large groups. But this version of the threat is smaller. It's quicker, more desperate. It slips through anything. And that is why the response must also evolve yet again. But not back to what we used to know, something different. Because this is no longer just a question of strength. It's a question of awareness. Weapons will always have their place in war. The military remains essential, yes, but force is still necessary. We agree. But that force alone cannot detect intent. It cannot read behavior. It cannot always see what is designed to blend in. Only intelligence can do that. Real intelligence, penetrative intelligence, the kind that comes from communities who trust the system enough to speak. The kind that connects agencies instead of separate them from the people that they themselves are trying to protect. Trust is the word. The kind that moves faster than the threat itself. In fact, the kind that moves inside of the threat. And this is where Nigeria has to change its tactics. Where at another point of adjustment, the insurgency has shown that it is willing to return to old tactics if they still work. But the country cannot afford to respond with old methods and expect new results, because the truth is rather simple. What worked then will not be enough now, because it came back. The threat has learned, it has adapted, and so must the response. So our response as a country must deter, it must preempt, it must stay one step ahead every single time. And that can only be done with intel, intelligence, penetration, precision. Because in a conflict like this, survival does not go to the strongest side, it goes to the one that actually understands the movement and the method of the opponent, and that adapts quickly to suit that movement. So hopefully, we hope that the government will take at least a leaf and maybe infuse, penetrate this time instead of just react. Welcome to Breakfast Extra. We'll be talking about this and more, the bomb blast inside of Maiduguri. And of course, we're expecting that you stay with us all the way till the end at 11 o'clock. I'm not alone. Inam Masso is going to be with me. Of course, there she is. Inam, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mazino.
Grand. So we have so many things to talk about today. And of course, I think we have a continuation from yesterday's subject, if you remember.
I do.
Yeah, don't pick on me this time today, okay?
I promise I won't.
Please. Thank you. Let's get the show started, shall we? Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Mazino, I know that there's so much that you wanted to share this morning.
Yeah, just in case they're wondering why
they put me on the spotlight.
Yeah, it's all good. Welcome. It's another Sunday here for Breakfast Extra. Of course, we have a very interesting conversation to talk about here today. We have a carryover from yesterday. And, well, we hope that we get to have this conversation with the PRO for Delta State, Bright Adafe, regarding the Ozoro sexual harassment instance. It's a big topic from yesterday, which we couldn't finish. And Inam had plenty of bones to pick with the men of this area. But then again, is it just about the men or the authority, the preparation or planning of the event, and also the orientation of the people in this area? Also today, we will be talking about the ballot. As we move towards 2027, what arrangements are being made, especially when it comes to electronic transfer. There's also the terrorism index we have to discuss today. Nigeria came up on the list.
Fourth, right?
Fourth, exactly, along with Iran and the rest, and that's just shameful. However, there have been massive deployments to Nigeria by the US, especially in the wake of the resurgence of suicide bombing, which I talked about inside of the monologue this morning. And I don't know if you were here a couple of years ago, almost 15, where suicide bombing was the big... You were?
I was not.
You weren't. Well, it was an instance in Nigeria where every single moment was one bomb blast or the other. It later metamorphed into kidnappings. And because that worked, that got the attention when suicide bombings could not be, well, when we had gotten the hang of it. It moved into kidnappings, mass kidnappings. Remember the Chibok girls? And from then on, there were more and more. And we've seen that happen again this year. Plenty of kidnappings, if not less than 350 kidnappings or individuals that were kidnapped. And there are individual efforts as well by bandits who now use this as... I'm talking too much this morning, aren't I?
No, I mean, it's good information. It's really good information to have because I know a lot of people that don't even listen to the news anymore. And if you find a situation where today they decided to listen, then we're giving them the feedback.
Right.
I had a friend of mine that called me. She's like, listen, you're the news. Update me.
Oh.
Literally, she's like, I don't watch the news. Update me. So
I'll continue then. So in this case, it's them returning to what they know how to do, but the government has to also change as well. But what do? I spoke about intel. I didn't just mean intel as in knowing. I mean intel as in infusion, penetration, getting into the system and knowing what they're about to do. It's the kind you see in movies, but it actually works in other countries, proper developed climes. Nigeria, we just rely on weaponry, boots on the ground. Let's go in there and just blast everybody.
No, but do we even do it well, though?
Which one you mean, blast everybody?
I mean, the weapons and the boots on ground that we say we have, and that's the strategy that we know. Do we do it well?
So far, it seems to be getting effect and making having impact.
Well, where is it?
How does it have an impact? If they're adapting, if they're moving to other methods, then that means it's actually working. But we weren't prepared for what next. What next is them going back to a former method, which is suicide bombing.
So you said something in your monologue. You said that when they did do the suicide bombing, of course, it raises a shock and an alarm, right?
Instant.
Exactly. And I think that was something that kind of shook the Nigerian government and shook Nigeria to a certain degree. And then they moved away from the regalia of wearing a bomb, and they went into the kidnappings and stuff. And I think for them, the kidnappings perhaps would have been more profitable. But if you've noticed, like you said, the kidnappings and all of that are not necessarily getting the kind of reaction that the government is supposed to give it. So if their desire is to really make a noise, they would look at methods that once shook the government.
Which
and like
is
you
going
mentioned,
back to suicide
going
bombing.
back to the suicide
see-
bombing. Not necessarily because what we're doing is not working. Maybe,
Well,
may not
it's
be
being
working.
counted.
Not necessarily that the government is doing the right thing for them to stop. Maybe it's just not getting the right attention. I mean, we've seen the dailies. We've seen the dailies all the time. There's always one thing or the other to make it look like the government is doing something. But in reality, I mean, we don't have the numbers, neither do we really have the facts. So we don't want to just assume before they call me out, you know? But they are looking perhaps for methods that say, listen, we want the noise to be there and we want to shake them.
Yeah.
What can we do where we shake them? And civilians, we know the art of war.
Yeah.
If you really want to scatter a nation, target the civilians.
There's something you also have to note that when they moved to suicide bombing, or rather when they moved to kidnapping, it wasn't just ideological. It also became about profit. They needed to survive. So they needed to get money. How? Let's kidnap them and hold them at ransom. Now they're shifting away from that profit and back to suicide bombing, which means it's now ideologic. Which means you can't see it's just walking down the street. You have to be inside of the system. You have to penetrate it. You have to send people in. And I mean real, actual agents, which is something I don't think we do enough of in Nigeria.
What?
Well, infiltrating.
Do we have agents that we can use to
That's
infiltrate?
you get it now.
Come on.
That's it.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to say in Africa per se, because I know that there are some African countries that are trying to get it right. But unfortunately, in Africa, we always tend to play the game of catch up. That's what we do. We catch up. The world runs and it sprints. And then once it gets like to the last
We
50
start our
meters,
engines.
that's when now we start. And it's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
I don't know how we're going to do it. And again, in this boots on ground where everybody, when something is going on, everybody says, please tell Donald Trump, is a problem for me, because it gives us an understanding to say we don't necessarily have the right kind of infrastructure, the law enforcement, the governance for us to boast about being sovereign. What is sovereignty then? If we need someone to come and infiltrate us in order for people to survive.
Well, you're right. We should do our own infiltration. Yeah.
That's our cue.
So tell you what. Let's bring you into the show with our first conversation. But first, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome once again. This is Breakfast Extra.
Alrighty, you're welcome back. Raji cut our conversation by playing in the music. Is giving Oscars the speech that doesn't end. But let's go straight into the dailies. This morning, we have got the Sunday Telegraph first. The Sunday Telegraph, if I may read, up at the top right there, it says, blackout, hot waves. Of course, we've seen the heat deepens misery as Nigeria's 23 billion power plan falters. Mazino, you were not here last week. We spoke about Asu Rock. That's a conversation for later. And then presidency gives details of Nigeria-UK migration pact. And then right underneath the Sunday Telegraph right there, it says Ramadan killings. Williams, Akintola, others condemn attacks in Borno, Katsina, and Zamfara. And then at the bottom there underneath, in the bullets, it says it's due to intelligence failure, says retired general. The blame game is never going to end. And then the MURIC, also Murik, killers, bandits, not Muslims. So it's been said, Mazino, that the killers are bandits. They're not Muslims. We're coming out of that ideology of a religious situation. And then underneath it goes FG Sokoto working in synergy to end insecurity. Governor Aliyu makes that bold statement. And then underneath there on page 5, it says, we're ready to retake our place in international affairs, says the PDP. Underneath, how weak capital budgeting spending affects infrastructural growth and economy, experts say. And if you're interested in that, you can read that on page 9. And then underneath there, it says 2 die, 31 seriously burnt in Lagos Calabar gas fires. I think fires are becoming too much of a situation. I know we saw many of those in December, especially last year, Mazino. And then ambassadorial posting. Finally, how foreign affairs ministers was sidelined. And then it says ex-diplomat makes that bold statement. And then names, choices, national embarrassment. Okori wonders why presidency, not ministry, announced postings. And then right at the bottom, finally, the ADC, Henshaw, Real Worry Pekin, and others decry violence. Fertility Festival, also known as the Ozoro Festival, where Mazino is from.
I do not come from Ozoro. I come from 16 kilometers away.
16 kilometers, 2 kilometers. You say potato, I say potato.
I don't like you. We move on now to the Sunday Sun. We have this big headline here. APC 2027 won't be walkover for us. party spokesman says will campaign vigorously, win big in presidency election. Atiku will be no threat to Tinubu. At this point, I really don't think that they're any threat because it seems like the APC is the only party that went into this with...
clear eye.
Yeah. How do you say it in South Africa?
That's
That's what they went in there with. So, I mean, we had that conversation from yesterday about the LP. And you could see how this decay is happening to every other single party. But let's move on to other headlines here. Agenda for new IGP. Security experts task DISU on enforcing discipline, professionalism on police personnel. It was very difficult for that to come out because it's very difficult. Diplomats reel out benefits of Tinubu's UK trip. President's state visit has economic diplomatic gains. Nigeria to enjoy port development security, says Sheni. At what cost? Ozara police arrest 11 more suspects, blame criminal elements, and 1 dead, 2 injured in Lagos tanker explosion. 38 hospitalized on explosion rocks Calabar gas station. And Enugu community, Nigerian army at war over ancestral land. So I was in Enugu over the week last week. And talking about ancestral or heritage, talking about heritage generally, they're very big on heritage. I went through this road, I think it was the Nsukka road, and there was this humongous tree that's got the girth of 2 people standing on each other, one on the other. That's how wide it was. But it was cut down and left there, right where it fell, because the tree itself is a god. And to move its carcass, you'd have to perform rituals that no ordinary chieftain can. So it's just going to lie there until so the big in heritage is the point. Yeah, so that story relates.
I'll give you a comment about heritage, just not now, maybe off air.
Okay.
Let's move from there to the Nation, the Sunday Nation today. At the top there it says, Saraki, McCarthy, Ghana lead, PDP reconciliation talks. You can read that on page 4. Wike-backed NCC names Ikpeazu to head convention. I apologize. And then, of course, I'm ready to meet Tinubu for Nigeria's progress. This is Lamido. Very interesting. I think we all are ready to meet with him. And then FG orders arrest over sexual assault at Delta Festival. You can read that on page 2. As Mazino mentioned, that 11 more suspected culprits are in a police net. And then in the headlines today, it says, I'll support Tinubu to win 2027 elections, says Soludo. And then Shetima receives Zamfara governor into APC Tuesday. Right at the bottom there on the left, on the left-hand side, how Nigeria-UK deportation deal will work, says presidency. This is quite interesting because yesterday, Keir Starmer kind of emphasized that we did not necessarily come into that agreement. So I think the presidency needs to give us a bit of an understanding of what exactly they mean by that. Who is receiving who is going where.
And at what cost.
Exactly.
Because there are arguments how much it costs the UK government to actually keep these people in the UK while they're waiting whatever it is, like maybe further processes regarding their asylum.
Can I tell you an interesting story regarding that, actually? And when I read this, I found it to be a bit interesting because some years ago, my mom was, of course, diplomatic relations and stuff. We had in South Africa, there was a bunch that were Nigerians that were illegally in South Africa. And it was deportation talks. Some of them that had been incarcerated, had finished their term, and now that the incarceration was coming to an end, diplomatic talks needed to happen as to who is going to receive them when they get to Nigeria. So there was quite a big number, Mazino. And I can tell you for free, I was shocked. When they were having the deportation conversations, the Nigerian government said it straight up, we don't want them. Wow. It was crazy. And I think these are conversations.
How does it end?
I mean, to a certain degree, I don't know how they finished it off because, of course, it's internal, affairs, but they were really, really having conversations as per, what do you mean by that? These are
your people.
They are from Nigeria, right? And they are here illegally. Some of them were incarcerated.
You have to understand that reintegration actually costs a lot of money. You can't just bring them and leave them here. The Nigerian concept, well, we would normally just, you guys have come back, what's our business? Don't you have families?
I mean,
But it's not supposed to be so, because you're supposed to take responsibility for them. You're supposed to house and feed them. And that's what the UK government goes through. And they're spending billions doing that every single year. So now that we're in talks with them over deportation, we have to carry that responsibility. So this is why I keep asking, at what cost? Or are we just simply going to go the regular Nigerian dehumanizing way of just, you guys can just...
And I think one of the reasons why we're struggling with this in Nigeria is because even we that live in Nigeria don't necessarily understand what the deportation laws in Nigeria are. I've never heard of anyone in Nigeria get deported. You get to the airport and you're like, oh God, sorry, madam, you have overstayed. Collect this one. And then,
and then that's it.
It moves on from there.
I think it's a conversation we need to follow and talk about, especially here on Breakfast Extra.
I actually agree.
We will.
All right, before we move on to the next newspaper, underneath there it says, Umahi breaks silence on Ohiri dispute, insists on court resolution. And then in red right there, security agencies not responsible for resurgence of bombings, says the minister. You can read that on page 7.
Okay.
What do we have next?
The Daily Independent is what we have next for Sunday. Blood, power, and silence. Inside the troubled politics of Benue, 6 prominent Nigerians to receive Independent newspaper's Lifetime Achievement Awards. Congratulations to the 6 in rape incident recorded during cultural festival, Ojoro leaders say. Under that, we have Wike-backed PDP NCWC inaugurates Ikpeazu-led convention planning committee, and terrorism stakeholders laud Tinubu's relocation order to service chief. Says it's bold, symbolic, but not comprehensive solution. Want military and socio-economic engagements. And that's perhaps maybe one of the answers, socio-economic engagements. Yes, indeed. That's all for the Sunday Independent.
We've got the Sunday Punch coming up, and Mazino, this was not a prophecy or anything, but we knew this was coming. Sunday Punch up at the top there, it says DHQ allies fear as the U.S. deploys drones to Nigeria.
I didn't fear it was coming, I knew it was coming.
We knew it was coming, but you know what? They always act like, well, we're in partnership with them. We're working together. That's what Mr. Bola said. No, they didn't bomb Nigeria. It was a partnership.
We have a saying across tribes in Nigeria that when the handshake goes beyond the wrist, that's trouble. So now it's reaching the elbow.
So
it's going
to reach the neck very soon. It's going to reach the neck very soon.
Exactly. And that's the fear. I've said, why the attention on Nigeria? And now that by the way, did you know that the U.S. government is considering putting slowing down on the war in Iran?
Yes, I read
So the focus is changing now. Now we've destabilized the oil routes and, the economy. Let's make friends with somebody who's got oil. This time, let's try friendship. Let's not attack. Let's just make friends.
See, that's the thing with our say, can you see? His way is not necessarily always the right way. And you look a little bit funny.
Desperate?
Yep. Because, I think that CNN put together a collage where in the same speech, Mazino, it's, well, we don't need you. And then, oh, but we need their help. No, but U.S. is the most powerful country in the world. But I don't understand why they're not coming to our aid.
Yeah, exactly. It's back and forth like
so. It's such a contradiction. But again, I think when we bring it back to Nigeria, we're interested to find out what Donald Trump's interest is in Nigeria, because it's not the genocide. It's not the genocide.
See, I've got monologues to this, and I ask these questions directly.
It's not. And unfortunately now, when you begin to see, I think one thing that we need to do, and we're going to get back to the dailies before Maeva screams in my ear, is that...
There we go. Go on,
we have to follow the pattern. We have to follow the pattern. We look at it with what happened with Maduro. The modus operandi for Maduro was he's oppressing the people, and he infiltrated. The modus operandi on Iran was nuclear weapons. Where are they? Let me say it in an African accent for everybody to see. Where are they? We cannot see them. And then now Nigeria, it was the genocide. We're not saying...
They're not saying that it didn't.
It's not there.
But it is equal on both sides, whether Christian or Muslim.
Yes, so I just feel like it's a very calculated thing where he looks for an opening, but in that opening, he's also going to get what he wants from it.
Indeed. I think we can't take any more of the dailies, but I think we've done plenty of talking around them, so thank you very much, Inam. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Maeva. Let's continue Sunday Punch. It says right next to Mr. Donald Trump, it says demand surges for anti-HIV injections. I've never heard of an anti-HIV injection. I think we need to have a doctor to come in and do that. I've heard of ARVs. I've never heard of an anti-HIV. And then states list health facilities for free access. That would be a good one. I hope that free access means good facilities, because healthcare, is something that's been in the headlines in Nigeria for a while now. And then it says Eid, inside the spiritual lives of Nigeria's billionaires. Interesting one. And then right in the blue there, before we get to the headlines, we see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu there. And it says 2027, we can't stop anyone from contesting Tinubu's ticket, says the APC on page 4. And then on page 5, right underneath, it says buildings destroyed, 40 injured in Lagos Sea Rivers explosion. And then Ozoro Hora, female students flee varsity over fear of fresh attacks. Wow. It's very gruesome and very, let me not get into it. Yeah. And then the ADC crisis right there, the headlines for Sunday Punch is faction presses INEC to drop Mark. Help me, Mazino.
I don't know where you are.
Aregbesola. Yeah. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. Page that you can find that on page 3. And then right at the bottom, it says Bala moves to take over party. ADC challenges APC presidency behind ordeal. And then you're irresponsible. Stop making wild claims, says the ruling party. Right underneath there, when it talks to sleeping patterns, toxic sleep, how vendors repackage germ-infested mattress as fairly used. Ew. And then I'm heartbroken by my husband. My husband was killed over plantain, says a widow. Interesting one.
Okay, that's it for the dailies this morning. Let's get to the conversation. We've got big stories ahead. Do stay with us. Let's take a break and we'll be back with these conversations.
Now, if you joined us yesterday, you will know that there is a growing outrage in Delta State following disturbing allegations of sexual assault during a cultural festival in Ozoro, Isoko North. Viral videos have brought national attention to what many now see as a breakdown of safety within a space that should respect identity and pride. The police have confirmed arrests, including a community leader and several suspects, as investigations continue into the incident.
So what makes this story particularly unsettling is not just the act itself, but the setting. Festivals are communal. They are meant to be safe, collective, and also expressions of heritage. But when allegations like this emerge, it raises difficult questions about consent, about crowd control, and whether long-standing traditions are being exploited in ways that harm rather than preserve community values. So it also puts a spotlight on how quickly communities respond when such lines are crossed. So we were supposed to have on the show today the PPRO Delta State Command, Bright Edafe, but unfortunately he is actually on his way to the Ozoro community along with the CP this morning, so unfortunately he will not be able to join us. However, we do have Honorable High Chief Daniel Mela Akpoli, who will be joining us to have these conversations so we can get to the depth of this matter and especially about the culture itself and how come. Also joining us via audio is Austin Azu, who I think is also on his way to the Ozoro community at the moment as well to bring us more information about this. But let's first talk with Austin Azu. Austin, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us via audio. Please confirm that you can hear us.
Yes, good morning, Edo. Good morning, Phil. I hear you guys perfectly.
Grand. So Austin, we're going to try and be brief because we know you might be on the move. Now, tell us exactly what you have discovered about the occurrence or the happenings, incidences that happened in Ozoro last week and what the authorities are doing about this. I hear that the PPRO is on his way to the community currently. So what will happen when he gets there?
Okay, first and foremost, let's begin by saying that first, there was misleading information about the festival that took place at Ozoro. There was never a time where you have a great festival or festival of great. It was just a normal festival the people of Ozoro have celebrated over the years. A couple of persons who are within this area and within these houses to confirm that to you that they have never been any time they have these alleged festival of great and whatever. Very unfortunate that what happened at Ozoro precisely, I think it was on Thursday, I guess. Very unfortunate that during the annual festival, that some persons were molested, particularly some females were molested, and that went viral. And based on that, since then, Ozoro has never been a very fair name. However, someone from Delta would want to communicate to some people outside the state. They will say, you are from the state where they rape guest festival and all those ones. But nevertheless, the police and the other security agencies in the state, they are working hand in hand to ensure that the suspects behind these evil acts are brought to book. Even the traditional ruler was not quite happy about the turnout of events in Ozoro, and everyone in the state, including state governments, are working closely to ensure that the suspects behind these acts are brought to book. So we are currently on our way to Ozoro on a fact-finding mission to ascertain what really happened, go to the spot, speak to other persons in the area over there. But nevertheless, the CPA and about 16 persons have been arrested, already connected to what has happened in Ozoro. And the ball now is in the court of those who alleged that they were raped for them to come forward so that they'll be able to testify before the police and other authorities, so that those alleged and accused will be charged to court accordingly. Because if you are alleged, or if you must prove that this actually happened, and so on and so forth. Of course, the viral videos we saw, you can't deny the fact that some of them were not molested, some of them were not assaulted, and so on and so forth. So assault is quite different from rape, and one should be able to define what is rape and what is assault and molestation. So by the time we get to Zoro, we'll find more about what really happened and speak to residents and speak to eyewitnesses who are on ground. However, this side of the world, when it comes to providing information to police and other journalists, becomes very quite difficult, that some of them are likely to hold back their information, and thereafter they start saying it outside and they start divulging it to other persons who may likely not going to pick up their grievances before the appropriate authorities. But I want to assure you that we'll be able to provide more updates by the time we get to Zoro. But the king might only give us more insight about what has happened so far, and the police as well. The city is going with other top management teams, and of course, journalists are going with them as well, and to meet the locals over there to get more information about what has happened. Of course, there's no way you tell me that the security agencies, particularly the police, who are the lead security agencies in the state here, are quite happy with the development of things. The Edo State in the past few years have been priding themselves. The state government has been priding itself as a very safe place for investors and so on and so forth. But what has happened in the past few days is giving concerns to the state government, and it has given a marching order to the police to unravel what has happened. And justice is served to those who demand justice.
Okay. Now, Austin, we're wondering how long it'll take you to get to the community, because we'd like to perhaps come back to you inside of the show to give us updates. That's one thing. On the other hand, we're also very interested in this culture itself. Yesterday, we had with us Mr. Eniwake Orogun. He is the president of the Isoko National Youth Assembly Worldwide, and we tried to ascertain from him exactly what the punitive measures were for people who did not adhere to the culture at this event from before. As in, culturally, what happens to those people, young maidens who were found on the street while this ritual was being carried out? We wanted to know if there was any relationship between what we saw in the videos with the youth and what stands culturally. Do you have any idea of this culture and how it's supposed to be performed originally?
Okay, let me begin from the rear when you talked about the distance. Of course, this is Nigeria, and the rules might not be too free, because sometimes you run into holders and some other things on the road. So I highly guarantee you how soon we'll get there. But from Zero, it's not quite far, and the road is very measurable. So, of course, we get there when we get there. After human, own errors and whatever happen on the road. So, for that, the festival, I might not be able to give an accurate update or whatever that happened, but from the preliminary investigation we have done so far, we have told that the festival is a facility, and what the cultural beliefs of the people in the world and it just comes out as among the 5 posts that the kingdom that normally
We can't hear you anymore, Austin. It might be because you are in transit. That is expected, but thank you very much for the effort in any case. We're going to wait for you to get to the community, and hopefully maybe we'll get the answers that we've been searching for since yesterday, because it is very important, Inam, to find out exactly where you're coming from before you know where you're going. What exactly are the tenets of the culture? What exactly is supposed to happen to people who did not adhere to what the cultural, what do you call it now? The bits of the, I don't know. What happens to them, and how related is it to what we saw yesterday, or rather last week? Because,
so when you say what happens to them, do you mean the men or do you mean the women?
I mean the women in this case now, you know, because yeah, cultures have rules. Like in Lagos, for instance, there is the, can somebody help me what is it the Egungun Festival? Yes, the Egungun Festival. Now, the Egungun Festival has its own stipulations, has its own rules, people who are not supposed to see them, people who are supposed to see them, and all of that. And if you do not adhere to the rules, you'd get a, I don't know, cultural slap on the wrist or something like that. So what is it in the case of the Ozora instance?
I mean, we've got our next guest. You can go ahead and introduce him so
yes.
we can ask those questions.
We have joining us now the High Chief Daniel Mela Akbuli. He's the immediate past President General of the Ozora Kingdom. You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Please do confirm if you can hear us. Fantastic.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
We can see you clearly very much, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Sir, we are very, very interested in the culture of this Ozora community. We would like a start to finish type explanation of this ritual, and then we would like to proceed to what exactly happened in the instance that proceeded on Thursday. So first of all, if you can intimate us with what this festival is and how it's supposed to be performed.
Yes, thank God. I like as you have earlier said, I'm the immediate past President General of Ozora. And apart from that, I'm also from the community Oramudu in Uruto, in Ozora, where the ritual actually took place. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my father met this ritual. It is basically for fertility. It is not for any harm. It is not for any assault, not for any molestation. Since inception, as of today, I'm 61 years old, and I've been witnessing this. It's not that I'm part of those who serve the gods, but I've been witnessing it. Nothing of this nature has happened before. It's unfortunate that this time around, it was hijacked by the hoodlums, where even none of us can really identify those who carry out this act. The whole idea about this ritual is, I'm not really involved in the serving, but I think every 3 years, it is served for those who are not giving birth to children. It's like a situation where they believe that the land will bless those who are not having children, who are not conceiving. And most times, it is usually after the serving of the gods, it is those who are affected that will come out that they are having this problem. And the whole idea is for them within the community, not Ozora entirely, to throw sand, just pack sand and water sometimes on them. It was all fun. And from the records of what they have so far, it was clear according to them, and according to their own belief, that it has been helping the community, it has been helping the people of Oramudu. In particular, it has not been extended to any other place, not Ozora entirely. And there are some issues that we are getting where the tribunal ruler is claiming that he was not told. When I was the President General of Ozora, we have other gods that are being served by other communities, Ruto, Erovie, Etevie. We have Ogene in Etevie. I was never told one day that they are serving Ogene. And we only hear that the Etevie people are serving Ogene. I'm sure that will happen in the case of this Oromudu issue. There have not been any official issue of them going to the palace or to the city president general to inform them of what they are doing or what they want to serve. There are particular designated persons that are involved in serving this thing. They went on this fateful day. They carry out their rituals as usual, not to harm anybody, but to bless or to seek for assistance from the gods on those who are not giving birth. That is just the whole scenario, and that was what that was carried out. Unfortunately, this ritual took place at a forest after the university.
Honorable.
On their way back, outside,
Honorable,
behind.
can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Apologies.
Yes.
Let's just go on a very quick break such that when we come back, we allow you to express yourself freely. Let's take that break, and then when we come back, we continue with this conversation with the Honorable. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's still conversations regarding the instance that happened in Ozora only just last Thursday after a heritage ritual went wrong. Now, this resulted in youth assaulting women on the streets, and of course the videos have gone viral. You might have seen a couple of them, however disturbing. We have with us, speaking to us, Honorable High Chief Daniel Miller Akweli, who's been telling us about this culture, specifically how it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to go. Honorable, you're welcome back. Thank you very much for the details that you have been sharing with us. Inam has plenty of questions for you. Go ahead, Inam.
Put me on the spot. Honorable, I think my first question is, it's been tagged that the festival was then hijacked by hoodlums. I'm trying to understand that what would have propagated a behavior that allows them to react in that way. I know that when we had a guest yesterday, it was said that there is a town crier that comes out, makes the cry, and communicates to single women that for such a period of time, they are to not come outside of their house. If they do come outside their houses, then they perhaps would be a bit of a penalty or a punishment given to them by the hierarchy or whatever that may be. But yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, Thursday, it looked as though the punishment for women coming out was the assaults. I'm trying to understand what would propagate that behavior that made them feel like we have the right to punish them in this manner.
Sorry, it is not used. The language punishment shouldn't have come in. Shouldn't have come in. Like I said, the culture has nothing to do with assault or molestation. But for the fact that they have this whole belief that the day that these things used to happen, they may be a kind of touch of women and all that, and it is outside the culture completely. The announcement why women were out, or it is even within a confined area of Oramudu, not the entire Ozora as it's been captured. It is just for the purpose. The whole thing allows it that in the night, those who are affected should be the one to come out and say, I have not been having children. I cannot conceive. For them to segregate from those affected and from those not affected, that was what brought about the issue of the town crier that went within Oramudu as is. Ozora is a very big place. They could not cover to the area of the university. The area of the university is even another community entirely. That is not part of it is just Oramudu, but major part of the university is Urude community land and other. And this announcement was made in the traditional area of Oramudu, which have been, and it has never caused issues like this. It is not by any punishment that you come out. There is no any punishment that says that, oh, if you come out, or if a woman comes out, you will be punished in this manner, or you will be punished in that manner. No. It was just a caution to segregate those who are affected and those who are not affected. So in case when they are throwing this aside as tradition or their culture prescribed, will not be on those or innocent one, another, which may feel embarrassed, another. It is the embarrassment that other people that are not affected. Having children, about the announcement of, please, if you're a woman, don't come out. But even if you're not a woman, don't come out. They allow those who are affected to come out for the train of the sand or water out there. It was all fun, not anything serious that has to do with embarrassment, harassment, or molestation.
Well, the Honorable High Priest Daniel, one more thing now. I think I'm getting a better understanding of this ritual now. However, let's talk about the planning. I think he's called the OVA, if I'm not mistaken. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. Noted that he was not informed about the planning. So I'm wondering exactly who champions this ritual, if it's the chief priest or the leader of the community. How exactly is the hierarchy of the planning executed? Who is in charge?
Unfortunately, we have the man called Okmara of that particular god. He's the one that served the god. He's the head. The Okmara, who is among the people that are arrested now, I'm sure, is the one, is among those who are arrested now. He is the one who served the god. And it is just the idea of whether some people were not informed. It has never been in the history or in the tradition of this aspect that anybody be informed apart from those who serve it. Like me, I must be honest to you. They called me and said that you bring money, they want to buy goats and all that. I told them I don't serve God. I'm not contributing. Please, those of you that are involved in serving this God, go and buy your goat and eat your goat. I will not participate and all that. So it wasn't, the planning was actually done in the usual way. It was not outside what they have been doing. The unfortunate thing is that the planner never envisaged that useless boys, hoodlums, the court boys and so-called the Yahoo boys that look for ritual things and all that will get involved in this thing and go into the molestation and all that. If they were aware, I'm very sure measures would have been put in place by getting police involved, by getting this, which ordinarily getting police involved. These are external people. You cannot bring them to your cause to participate in the serving of God and other. What would have just even happened is that if this was a visage, would have been a situation whereby the traditional vigilantes and other would have gotten involved in all of these things and other. But nobody envisaged this. Neither was it planned to harm anybody. You can see that they just look at me, look at the way I'm dressing, look at the environment I am. I was just called now on this interview, and I just have no option than to say, let me go ahead. Whichever situation, whatever look I am, wherever I am, let me just carry it out and all that. So it wasn't an issue planned to harm anybody. Even as we speak now, the person in question, that is the people who serve this God, they are not happy that this thing escalated to this issue and that this is not the way it was planned, and they never envisaged what has happened.
Honorable, okay, I understand where you are coming from and I understand what you were saying, but I want us to look at the security now. You mentioned something. You said that, of course, this is not the entire Ozoro community. It's a specific area or a specific region, right? Let's look at the security. First of all, for the people there, and then, of course, the women. What can you, based on what we have seen, I mean, that means it's quite clear that there are a lot of hoodlums in that community. And unfortunately, there is a university there. What does this say about the security and the infrastructure of that place?
Yes, when you talk about security, one can only plan when something happens. The aspect of the security I will say now is that it has happened, it has happened. The people who are involved within that community are now one, the expansion of that region, that area, that has to do with Oramudu and the hoodlums that are involved.
Honorable,
which is not actually part of
honorable. Apologies, sir. Honorable, please, if you can hear me, I apologize. First and foremost, we cannot move on from a segment of it has happened, it has happened. That is not all right. Women were assaulted, women were embarrassed, clothes were stripped, so many things happened. And we cannot move on from the situation and say it has happened, it has happened. Let's move on and try and de-escalate the situation. From a traumatic standpoint and everything in between, what took place in that community was never supposed to have happened. Okay, it has taken place. How do we come out of a situation and say, let's look at the infrastructure, let's look at the kind of people that we have in our community, and let's deal with it? Because the reality is that it is a problem. How do we fix the problem? We can't move on from it and say, well, it happened, on to the next one. There is a problem.
Okay.
And how do we fix the problem?
Yeah, there is a problem. Now, what I'm trying to say that if I've used the word that has happened, I apologize. But because, and why am I saying this? I am never in support of what has happened. I condemn it in totality. I condemn it in totality. Initially, I didn't want to get involved in this, but it's my community. And I'm from there, I'm from Oramudu. My father is from Oramudu. What do? They keep calling me, that's why I am involved. And that's why I actually yielded. Despite the way I am dressing, despite the position I am, or wherever I am, I gave them a go ahead and I will go ahead and grant this interview. It's so bad. The only thing that, like now, we have been able to identify 2 persons being assaulted. And I'm very sure that at the appropriate time, the community will look into those who are assaulted and know the way forward. But the basic thing is that the promise that some of us are prepared to give to the entire world is that what has happened can never and will never happen again, because some of the measures that ought to have been put in place that would have resulted to a page of all of these things that causes it. But I think in any previous one, I can tell you with a whole confidence that this will never happen again. But on the issue of the affected person, the community, at the appropriate time, they will look into it and know and what. If it requires even a compensation, the community don't mind, because it happened on the ground that they carry out a festival. If the festival was not carried out, such act would not have emanated from this of a place another. Just the way I look at it.
Honorable.
I may be wrong.
Honorable, thank you so much. Last question for you before I let you go. You just mentioned now that this incident happened because of the fact that there was a festival. I beg to differ. But my question to you is, like you said, you are within your 60s and you've been in that community for perhaps maybe all your life. Outside of this festival, when we look at the statistics of rape cases in your community, do we have a number of how many rape cases have been reported? Because if public assault like that can take place where people are filming it, it is plausible for us to say that there's a possibility that it's a culture.
Oh, this is a very, very good question. Like I have told you earlier, I'm in my 60s. I have never witnessed a rape. There's a difference between rape, molestation, and harassment. The word in the legal sense of rape, I've never witnessed it in that community. Authorities don't know for any issue called rape. We are custodians of visitors. It's the most developed community in the entire Lisoko.
Is it known for harassment? Is it known for harassment? Okay, it's not known for rape. Is it known for harassment?
It is not even known for harassment. Like I told you, this issue, this ritual that took place have been on for so many years. And look at how it is. Like I told you, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather met the whole of these things, and it had never happened before. So it is not known for any harassment. It has been peaceful. It has been peaceful. We have never witnessed it. That's why everyone is involved. Everyone is concerned on what has happened and what must not happen again.
Honorable, I'd like to thank you for your time. I get what you were saying. It's a bit hard to process because behavior comes from a pattern. But I mean, as you have said, it's in your 60 years, it's not something that has been done before. But thank you so much for your insights, and your time in this matter. Of course, we know right here at the studios, within Nigeria as well, that this story sits at the intersection of culture as well as accountability. And the real test is whether communities can protect both their heritage and their people at the same time. We will take a break right now so I can calm down a little bit. And when we return, conversations begin. Do stay with us.
Welcome back. It's time for another conversation here. It's another big story. It's a cultural controversy as it unfolds in Edo State, this time not Delta State, where we're coming from. A report that a Benin Queen, alongside others, may face sanction for an alleged unauthorized visit to Pela's palace. Did I get that right? What might appear at first as a routine visit has quickly escalated into a question of protocol and authority as well. And the boundaries that define traditional institutions. At its core, this is about control and continuity. The Benin monarchy is one of the most structured traditional institutions in Nigeria with clearly defined rules governing conduct, movement, and also representation. But we now live in a time where visibility is constant. And of course, reactions are no longer confined to old boundaries. We've got the internet, we have social media. When these two realities meet, friction is almost inevitable.
Now, to help us unpack this tension, we are joined by Namazino. Please help me.
Yes, we are joined by Amienye Omorige, former senior special assistant to the governor of Edo State and on arts, culture, and also tourism. And of course, Olumide Olu Ayeni is also joining us, intellectual property and entertainment lawyer. Olumide, you're welcome. We're going to be waiting for Ayeni to join us later via Zoom. But now that we have you, and Inam is from South Africa, so she may not... Don't worry, I'll put you through next time.
Don't mind, Mazino.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this from a cultural perspective. And I mean cultural in two different ways. I'm talking about the Benin culture and I'm talking about the culture of social media.
Right.
Where are we finding this nexus of friction happen? What exactly is the problem here now? Because social media is loud, it's in your face, it's instant, it's now. Culture has been on for ages. We just came from talking about the rituals in Delta State.
Yes.
And here we have a structure that has been for centuries. Only this time it's meeting with the new culture, social media, and we seem to be having some problems. Why are we having these issues exactly?
All right. Basically, these issues that you've just highlighted or that we're currently facing is basically because I think that people are so much particular. I mean, like you rightly said, social media is in our faces right now.
Sorry, let's talk about the instance itself now regarding Pela and the Benin Queen.
Okay, yes, in that particular instance,
let's describe it a little. What happened?
So basically, I think that from the story that is out there is that he didn't exactly get authorization from the Edo Kingdom, right? He didn't go through the right authorities to get in there. And they are alleging the traditional rulers of Edo are chiefs, right? They are alleging that, his entrance into the palace was unauthorized and that they are now sanctioning him, asking for him to grant an unreserved apology for his actions in any case. And so now this brings you to the question of what authority do they have to make such...
Well, he didn't just enter there, the gates just opened. So welcomed him in.
Exactly.
In fact, he spoke with the Queen. Who also attested to the fact that she follows him, but Pela hadn't followed her back and she was offended.
Yeah.
So there was all that conversation. So he did get authority. I'm looking for a bridge here where we're losing culture, and unless we embrace social media, we might lose it altogether.
Right.
Because we have you're heaving very heavily. Are you okay?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
You have another one of those tirades coming, yes?
No, I'm not. I'm actually not.
Okay, so that's my confusion here. Why the adverse reaction from the Benin Kingdom? I get the whole permission bit, but shouldn't this be an opportunity to actually show what our culture is to the rest of the world? Because Pela is actually really big.
Yes, like you've rightly said, it's actually very big, and this could have been a very good avenue to sell the Benin Kingdom's culture basically to the world, you understand, giving his the audience and his following on social media, right? But I think that we're leaving the question of them being, whether they are within their rights to actually say that it wasn't properly authorized, whether the chiefs that they claim to have granted him authority, permission to get in the palace was right, whether it went through the right channel. Right question you'll be asking now is, did he do his due diligence to actually on his store down to Benin Kingdom? Do you understand? Because if we're saying that, yes, they're not accepting social media, I don't think that's the problem right now. It's the problem of them preserving their culture, right? And then the structure that they have in place, in any case, for such visits. Do you understand? These are traditional institutions, right, that are grounded in cultural values, right? And they've been there and they're sacred in any case, so they've been there for a while. So it's a question of whether or not due diligence was taken by Pella's team or people that handled this store for his visit to Edo Kingdom. Do you understand? It should have been an opportunity where he's even meeting the Oba of Benin, right? I mean, the question, if that visit was right, you'd probably be meeting the Oba of Benin in such a situation, right? I mean, if you're visiting places like that, you are supposed to have done certain due diligence in any case, but that's not to excuse the kingdom, the Edo Kingdom in any case, to say whether or not they are accepting, they are being receptive of social media new media or anything like that. Yes, basically.
You were clocking it. What was that?
I was clocking it because, like he said, first of all, I don't necessarily have a question. I will not condemn, I will commend. I've been doing a lot of condemnation. I will commend the Edo Kingdom for what they did because, Mazino, at the end of the day, like he said, if you want to preserve tradition, just because times are changing does not mean the way you preserve the tradition needs to change as well. I'll make an instance. If you look at the monarchy in the UK, right? When we look at the monarchy, we know, though long live the Queen, is no longer with us.
Yeah, exactly.
She's no longer with us.
Right.
But there are certain things that regardless of anything, they will never take, regardless of how times are changing.
Right.
This clout that we feel like we need because there's social media, the palace doesn't need that clout. They are relevant with or without social media. So I do not blame them for that. And I think that's a question that I'm going to ask you as to, after I make the statement that I make, is that why is it that in Africa we constantly feel the need to evolve because we feel like times are evolving? We constantly feel like we need to do that.
Become an argument between you and I. But
because you know what? When you look at it, like you said, they're preserving the culture. What in the world does Pella have in common with the culture that they're trying to preserve, right? We know it for a fact that unfortunately, Pella, and I say it with all respect, he's not a very polite
He's
young man.
rouge, he's
not
not refined.
And when
He's raw.
No, he's not raw. I don't know, maybe frozen is the word for it. Raw at least is, you know. So when you affiliate him with a
There's a certain discontinuity, I get you.
you get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And for them, they're like, as ancient as we are, we don't want to be affiliated with that because after he does the whole visit, what he puts on his social media either is for them or against them. And many a times when he comes back and gives his own feedback, it is never hailing where he came from. So my question is, why do we feel the need? And I'll ask Mazino as well, because this is where Mazino is.
I don't come from there this time.
His innovation, he's very innovative. Why do we feel? Why do we feel the need to diversify our culture and put our culture in there, even if the way in which we are using it does not uphold the standards of our African culture?
Okay, well, I would like to let you answer that, but we have to take a quick break, and when we come back, you'll be responding to that question from Inam. Let's take this break. Do stay with us. It's a very interesting second hour here for Breakfast Extra. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still our big story here, second one for today, and we're talking about the instance that transpired only last week inside of the Edo Kingdom, where social media influencer Pella visited the kingdom and met with the Queen. However, without the permission of the monarch. And this has resulted in, well, this conversation and also about format, about permission, about heritage. Now, we have joining us via Zoom, we're being joined by Amienye Omorege. He's the former senior special assistant to the governor of Edo State. Amienye, you are welcome. Before you joined us, Amienye, we...
Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning, good. Olumide was about to answer a question by Inam here in the studio. So let's get with that, and then we'll be back to ask you a few questions yourself.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And I was going to say that very brilliant. I mean, his points were very brilliant.
Which I stated outside when we were not on air. So I'm going to repeat that after.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Yes, but I mean, more importantly, right, I think that the frenzy about wanting to change our culture with times, right, is just, I think that is not... I'm of the opinion that we do not necessarily need to always want to adapt our culture to real times. In any case, we can, however, preserve the culture and still we don't have to modernize our culture. You understand? It loses its essence.
Harmonize it.
However, harmonizing it, but then doesn't lose, so that in any case, when you're trying to harmonize it, we don't allow our traditions or culture lose its essence, because it's been there for a while. There's a reason why it's our culture. It's a way of life in any case,
and
right?
Culture, of course, is supposed to be that.
It's supposed to be that.
It's supposed to be preserved.
Preserved in any case.
Since you referenced what I said when the cameras were not on us, I had said that the truth is what's happening now with social media is that it lacks, in fact, the world that we find ourselves generally now lacks decorum. Decorum no longer works because decorum is slow, decorum has procedure and bureaucracy, decorum is not working for social media. So with the antiques of these new social media influencers, it's the same as what you see with, for instance, the United States President, Donald Trump. There is no decorum. However, it does get things done. It's loud, it's in your face, it goes behind all the red tapes and gets there. And that's the format they are relying on. Now, it's not a bad thing when it comes to using it as a source of exposure for our heritage, is my point. However, it would cause friction because of its lack of refinement in this case. And of course, like you said, Pella is not really a refined individual. But let's come back to our guest on Zoom. Amienya is joining us. Amienya, thank you very much for joining us. Would like to know what your take in regarding this heritage versus new media. What do you think about the conversations that have transpired since after Pella's visit to the palace?
Thank you very much. I would say that there should be a balance between modernity and tradition. I know one of the very best way to get to the Gen Zs is through social media and all of that. But however, the protocols in our tradition shouldn't be broken because we want to modernize it. We must maintain our traditional institution. It is regimented. There are rules and there are do's and don'ts, in following our tradition and culture. And that shouldn't be distorted because we are trying to modernize it. So that is my view.
Amienya, could you please tell us exactly what the main grievance of the monarch is in this instance? What exactly are they annoyed for?
Well, I wouldn't say the monarch is annoyed. The monarch is not annoyed. The palace of the Benin monarch is wide open. We have had several visitors from across the globe visiting, the very revered king and the Benin monarch. But what the palace frowned at is the procedure. There are procedures of coming to the palace. If you officially write that you are coming to the palace, specific dates will be given to you, either by way of written correspondence or via call to tell you time and dates. You come to visit. You don't just barge in on the Benin monarch just like that. I think the problem with Pella's visit is that the knowledge of, it was not to the knowledge of the revered Benin monarch. Even if I saw online that the manager is saying that there was a proper written correspondence to the palace, but was there a response? Was a particular date given to them to visit? So that's the salient questions begging for answers.
I'm curious to find out. I know that there's been a lot of speculation regarding the nature of Pella's visit, because for you to be able to gain audience with the Queen, it would have been perhaps a meeting that was planned prior. But the nature of his visit, what was the nature of his visit to the Queen?
Well, I don't have details about that, but I would say that if proper permission was granted, things would have arisen in the first place. Like I said before, this is not the first time we'll have Gen Zs visiting the Benin monarch. Just few months or years ago, Rema was in the palace to visit the revered king. He was well received. I say there is a breach in communication somewhere that have arisen to this scenario. Thank you.
I mean, no, I don't know what I want to. It's very interesting. Again, like I said.
Thank you very much. I mean, yeah, let's come back to the studio here, and Olumide is with us. Now, Olumide, the question is, how exactly are we going to bridge this divide when it comes to heritage and new media? We do need it. Look at what happened in Ozoro, for instance. The only reason why that was, well, if you ask me why I think it degenerated into what it is because the youth do not understand what the rituals were for. They do not understand what they stand for, what the rules stand for, and they've gone overboard. The youth, short attention span. Nobody can listen to anything longer than 90 seconds these days. If it's not digest material, they're like, no, too long. I can't watch an entire documentary of 30 minutes. It's unfortunate, but that's what's happening. People like Pella and the rest, social media influencers, are able to digest these material and provide it to people of their generation. And this is an opportunity that I see in the visit that he had with the Queen, where they get to see, this is our culture, this is our Queen. Oh, grand. But it seems to be ruffling feathers. So how exactly can we bridge that gap between new media and heritage?
All right, that's a very brilliant question. And I'll say that one way we can do that is people that, people that champion these new medias like Pella and the likes, right? First of all, need to have.
So I'm not a big fan. I don't know why we're talking about the
but I mean,
what
it's
it
case,
does.
Yeah, we see what it does in any case, and he has a very strong audience. So it's a very good example in any case. But like the problem is, how well do they understand? I mean, the value of the position that they are, right? One, and also they should be able to have proper understanding and be well grounded in the whatever it is that they are. I mean, for that such a visit, you should be well grounded about the culture of Edo State. You understand, and understanding that he is playing a pivotal role into trying to sell the culture of Edo State. You understand, and so bridging that gap here is first of all having him understanding the role he plays, right, and being very well have ground knowledge about how he can use his position to actually sell or export our culture, and also our, on the other hand, the tradition of the monarchs, in any case, should understand.
Tolerant.
Yes, be able to, be a little receptive about these things, like understand that with these people, if they can work together with new media, right, we can obviously put out our beautiful culture to the world. We can be able to sell our beautiful culture to the world, our traditions, and Edo State is a very beautiful state, right? Yeah. And it's very well grounded in culture. Do you understand? We have lots of artifacts even outside the country, in any case. So like, I think that one of the two things is that, first of all, the new media do not necessarily even understand the position or the role that they play in well enough, right, to be able to understand that they can do well in assisting, right, in bridging this gap, basically. So it is on both sides, in any case, a call to action for both parties, right? You're being very receptive and understanding the role both parties plays, and that way we'll be able to bridge that gap properly and everybody will work well together.
So I think, personally, thank you so much for that. I think, Mazino, we need to be very selective and objective about the kind of people that we choose to market our tradition.
Right.
We have, that's what we call that brand ambassador, that ambassadorialship of a brand, a community, a monarchy, whatever the case may be, right? And again, it goes back to the question that I had asked Amienye with regards to what was the nature of his visit. If Pella had gone to the castle because he was interested in the culture, that would have been something different. But between all the four of us here and the rest of Nigeria, we probably know that that wasn't necessarily the nature. Yes. It was clout chasing or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So yes, I think there has to be a vetting that says, okay, yes, we are for people pushing the culture, but look at the person that you want to push the culture. Right. And personally, I think when we look at the traditional media in Nigeria, media-wise, we don't care who the person is. Whether the person has got a good rep or a bad rep, for the mere fact that they have got followers and followership, we feel like that's enough. I'll make an example. There was that young lady who had a drug problem. She had a drug problem in Lagos State.
Right.
And when she had the issue with the drug problem, Lagos State made her the ambassador for drugs. How can a person with a drug issue be an ambassador? Are you in remission yet?
Big questions there.
It's a very big question.
Let's come back to Amienye. Amienye, let's talk about how the government, how policies can be formed to be able to help us take advantage of new media or at least be tolerant to what it presents. Now, there is the, is it the National Agency for Tourism and Development, NTDA in any case. What's their responsibility and how do you think they can come here and help? Tourism is big, whether you like it or not. With people not being able to go outside of the country because of what's happening, with the wars across the Gulf, which is big on tourism, we are only left with staying home. If we do not package and present, he's laughing, if we do not package and present our culture, it will not be enticing to anybody, not even ourselves. So what do you think the agencies that are in charge of tourism and development can do to be able to use or take advantage of this instance that has presented itself?
Thank you very much. What the agency can do is to bring these social media influencers, stakeholders in the new media together to be able to preach about our culture. You know, nobody can better tell our stories than ourselves. So what we lack is coordination. So these agencies could actually bring all these social media influencers together, like my sister rightly said in the studio, and it should be those who are influencers who are reputable, not just any influencer. Those who want to tell the world about our culture to be the one that will be engaged and properly schooled about our culture so that they will be brand ambassadors to our culture, will represent us and tell the world our stories from the different ethnic groups across Nigeria. So that is to say, in a summary, that they need to be regulated, they need to be well schooled, you know, and all of that, for us to be able to tell our story in such a way that will be appreciated by the global audience.
Thank you, Amianye.
Thank you.
Olumide, if we regulate social media and social media engagements with heritage, doesn't it take away the bite, that urgency that social media brings, that wow factor? Once you regulate it, it becomes every other thing now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that when we begin to regulate it in that sense, right, it strips away its essence in any case, right? And like I think you made a point here today saying that, I mean, decorum has been, lack of decorum has been the order of the day in any case, especially going by social media. But I think in respect to what he was referencing to was regulating in the sense that people that we intend to champion our culture, right?
Or so we be intentional.
We'll be intentional about that, not necessarily regulating social media. But if we're trying to regulate social media, I think you're stripping away, you're taking away the essence of it. You understand? Because it's supposed to be spontaneous, it's supposed to be very bold and basically act in a way where your natural self.
It's the new language.
It's the new language,
so
like you
we
said.
We have to make the old cultures understand this new language, not change how they speak, but at least be able to communicate with it. Inem, I don't know if you agree.
No.
Why?
But you have South African cultures that were alien to us only until social media brought it up.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones where the ladies kick their feet above their heads, what's it called again? Then there's the circumcision. Well, there's so many of them, the rites of passage and everything.
Yeah, but you don't see influencers participating in anything like that. And that goes back to what I said, to say we need to be able to sieve things out and know when we need them to promote something and when we don't need them to promote something. Otherwise, we're going to find a situation where we're modernizing everything. And like I said, then it loses the depth of the authenticity. Do you get me?
Yeah.
It's like us telling Bonang now to go to Zululand and dress up like that and kick her leg up high. No, it's not going to work. Yeah. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, it's quite clear, gentlemen, this conversation is about relevance, it's about respect, it's about adaptation, because at the end of the day, tradition does survive not just by being preserved, but by how they are and how we as well respond to change. So I'd like to thank you both virtually and in studio.
And of course,
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Do stay tuned. We have other conversation coming your way here on Breakfast Extra. It's a very interesting Sunday, this.
In our big report today, Nigeria has been ranked 4th globally for terrorist attacks in the largest global terrorism index, reinforcing a difficult reality many Nigerians already live with. Now, despite sustained military campaigns and repeated assurances of progress, the data suggests that the threat remains deeply rooted, particularly across the Northeast and parts of the Northwest. But the numbers only tell part of the story, because behind them is a pattern of adaptation. Insurgent groups are shifting tactics, exploiting ungoverned spaces, and in some cases, embedding themselves within local economies and communities. There is also the regional dimension, where porous borders continue to complicate containment efforts with, of course, what that ranking forces us to ask is simple. Are we winning this fight, or are we learning to live with it?
Big questions. But we're joined here by Colonel Ademola Lawal, retired, Director of Research and Development at the Savannah Center for Diplomacy, Democracy and Development. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. And also Mr. Salahuddin Hashim, counterterrorism consultant. Gentlemen, welcome on the show this morning. Thank you very much for joining us, sirs. Colonel, let's start with you. What are we looking at here? Now, with these ratings out, are we looking at failure, or are we looking at a complexity that we are yet to understand? What exactly does this show? How did we get here, basically?
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Morning.
I think the issue is very, very complicated by various dimensions, particularly at the global level, and then Nigeria, suffering all the consequences of this global, overwhelming situation of insecurity, terrorism in particular. If you look at the report of the index, it indicates that there's a spike, in some of the few countries, including Nigeria. And that's a challenge we face, and we need to have all hands on deck to really stem the tide as it is. Thank you.
And I will come to Mr. Salahuddin Hashim. Apologies for that. Now, let's look at this from your own vantage point. How have terrorist tactics evolved in the last 5 years in Nigeria? In fact, have they evolved? Because taking into consideration what you said, Mazino, they are going back into the old ways.
All right, thank you very much. We moved very upwardly by 43% on the index. And first, I think the government and people who should pay attention need to take this report and look at how to, one, use it as a national security necessity, because it is a national security necessity that ought to influence decision-making at this point. Secondly, it should be translated into query. And then, of course, those who are saddled with security decision-making ought to be answering what some of these factors that are really helping to further create vulnerabilities are. And of course, in your opening, you have made a number of assertions to some of those factors. So one is the fact that, yes, we have porous borders, and there is no, we have not made any form of deliberate attempt to be able to contain, prevent, and deter inflow of foreign fighters. Because the fact is that, yes, there are inflow of foreign fighters into the country, and that is one. Two is that Nigeria is saddled between two axes of evil. One is the Sahel, and the second is the Gulf of Guinea. In the Sahel, from Mauritania up until Central African Republic to somewhere in Eritrea, the pressure and all the entire activities of terrorist organizations in that particular space is actually pushing pressure on the northern part of Nigeria. And then, of course, that tells us the kind of ripple effect that we see happening across the entire state within the region. But again, whether government in itself had been very responsive, but I think the challenge had been on two facets. One is that we have a litany of counterterrorism documents that hasn't been put into strategic use. We have the national security strategy, and good enough, Colonel Ademola Lawal, who is seated here, is a veteran. We have collectively used non-kinetic efforts to see how we can respond and jointly help the system to manage this whole process for over almost 2 decades now. But again, I think there is a need for government to pay attention. But most fundamentally, is the financial intelligence architecture that should peak terrorism financing hasn't been very robust enough. And that is one of the reasons why we have consistently witnessed this recent spike. Yes, the Financial Action Task Force recently removed Nigeria from the grey list, particularly on recommendation 8. But again, on other areas, we are still very vulnerable. And that tells very clearly that terrorism financing is still a very big issue that Nigeria hasn't been very responsive around. How have we effectively implemented national security strategy? This group, as you must see, they are very adaptive. And then, of course, the question is what exactly has been government's own deliberate programming beyond kinetic approach,
All right,
to take the non-kinetic response into dealing with some of these issues.
Sorry, I have to cut in because we're trying to manage the time here. I would like to come to Colonel Lawal on something that you said regarding non-kinetic approach. This morning, I gave a monologue where I talked about the fact that the Nigerian approach also has to shift. Since the terrorists have gone back to using suicide bombings, we also have to shift. How does this shift happen, Colonel Lawal? What must we do? In other crimes, there would be infiltration, there would be intel gathering, there would actually be people penetrating these systems to be able to tell what their next moves are. Does Nigeria have that capacity, that training, that personnel?
Yes, thank you very much. You will recall that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Oluyode himself, alluded to the question of the change in tactics by the terrorists. And he anchored his own response to the fact that the communities must be very much alert and collaborative with the government agencies. I think that's the real thing that we should be thinking about, how communities can continue to monitor themselves, to police themselves, to make sure that miscreants among themselves are put in proper check. Most importantly, youth radicalization is becoming very, very, a big question in terms of youth converting and radicalizing into terrorism. And these youths are among...
Colonel Lawal, I'm sorry to jump in there, but I didn't want you to go too far when you've mentioned this. Now, if the communities police themselves, if they're the ones who are in charge of their own security, then it raises a big question here about trust. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to help with intel as a community, then I must trust the system that's asking me to do that. Do these communities actually have trust in the system, in the agency, in the army, in the police? Most of them will say no. So how can we get the trust of the communities to be able to make them self-policing enough and also trust the system to provide results is the big question.
Yes, thank you very much. As a matter of fact, government itself must gain trust of the people. Generally, where government loses trust in the people, there's going to be complete breakdown of law and order and criminality. And as it is today in this country, so many people have lost trust in government. So the starting point, the beginning of it all, is for government itself to earn the trust of the people, to be able to deliver on their promises. The non-kinetic aspect that we talk about is a question of government itself doing their bit. And their bit is to make sure that people trust them. When they make promises, they fulfill it. Their social responsibility is completely carried out in a way that everybody will have confidence in government. Communities who don't have confidence in government will certainly begin to wonder, why are we providing information when the information will be used against us, as it happened in Kwara State, for example, where the traditional ruler actually took the information to government agencies and all that, and there was a backlash, there was a reprisal on that. So I agree with you. First and foremost, government must earn trust of the people in order for community to do their bit.
So still on you, sir, when we look at the communities, I know that unfortunately right now the name has lost me, but we have heard comments from governors and police and law enforcement that have said that civilians and communities need to learn how to defend themselves.
Governor Caleb Mutfwang of
Edo
State.
Yes, Governor Mutfwang had said that they should learn to defend themselves. Now, it's a very difficult battle. It's like going to a gunfight with a knife. And that becomes a very difficult thing because in essence, the government is saying, where we fail to protect you, be ready and willing to protect yourselves. And when we talk about the right that people have, that's a very difficult pill to swallow by someone that is on the government. Aside from that, let's look at the blind spots that Nigeria is currently facing, because we're not seeing a de-escalation. The numbers are rising. What are the biggest intelligence blind spots in Nigeria that Nigeria is facing at this current present?
Well, I think that what should actually cover this gap is technology. Technology. Where you have technology, the communities will be properly surveilled, and then, of course, there'll be quick response. You know, when we talk about ungoverned species or undergoverned species, road network is poor. Therefore, response time is also very poor. And therefore, you know, security is a co-production between community and government agencies. And so what is required actually is to reinforce the communities in terms of the drills. As a matter of fact, in some countries, they do what they call one-day police academy. They put people together, stakeholders together, market women together, farmers together, and begin to train them on how to identify threats, how to identify vulnerabilities, and how to keep an eye on those vulnerabilities and make sure that there's early, very, very early warning to necessary security agencies who will now do a quick response. So there are two things involved. It's a synergy between community providing early warning mechanism by monitoring, you know, the criminals and terrorists, and real-time, you know, information to security agencies. That's one. Secondly, and most importantly, the response time must be quick, must be very, very swift. If you are unable to do that, then the community themselves will lose trust and therefore will be unable to provide the necessary security and other mechanisms that they require to protect themselves. So in essence, what I'm saying is that, yes, indeed, communities must be trained, must be guided, must be properly educated on how they can provide their own bit of the security architecture in terms of providing the early warning mechanism that will be useful for a quick response by arms-bearing government agencies. And that's precisely what I think we should be looking at. And of course, the local governments themselves should be able to expand their development to cover those undergoverned species, to make sure that there are road networks, there are quick response mechanisms that can reach those remote areas where these atrocities take place.
All right, Colonel, thank you. Inam is not very satisfied, however, but I'm sure she's going to come back and ask something regarding that. But let's come to you, Mr. Hashim. Mr. Hashim, let's go back in time. Let's talk about 2010, 2012, 14, and 16. I think it was Yadra into Jonathan. We had these same issues of suicide bombings. And back then, it could be traced to ideology. And then it went to sort of like profit because they started to, what's the word, for ransom. They started to abduct for ransom. So it seemed a bit like survival. They needed to survive and they needed monies and they needed to exchange for ransom. Now we're seeing a return to that now after that had subsided for a bit. You also mentioned something about the Sahel belt and the ripple effect. I'm wondering why this seems to be changing right now from a profit standpoint to an ideological standpoint, because once you put a body on the line, once you sacrifice yourself, it's no longer about profit. It becomes ideology. So what's responsible for the change in tactics? Let's go deeper into why this is happening currently.
Like I said in my opening remarks, it's about the global trend. As we are all aware, the whole of Sahel, and like Dr. Hashim rightly mentioned, we are already, we're already encircled with it. You have the Sahel, challenges of Sahel. We have the Sudan conflict. We have the Somalia. We have Democratic Republic of Congo. We also have the Gulf of Guinea issues. So, and all these are present on Nigeria and West Africa in particular. And that's the challenge we have as a global trend. And all we need to do is to actually collaborate with all these various countries around us to make sure that together we, stem it in the bud. But particularly if you look at ECOWAS, we can see that there's a break even in the chain within ECOWAS. You can see that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are already broken away from ECOWAS. Therefore, the synergy is no longer there. And the porosity of the border is also causing the problem. And I guess that the only way we can actually attain some synergy and collaboration is by putting all these Sahelian states, the states in the Gulf of Guinea, all these states that are affected should come together in a way that we can stem this in the border. That's precisely what I think we should be doing.
So Nigeria is getting plenty of attention from the Western world, America to be precise. Here, we've got an infusion of 200 drones, if I'm not mistaken, and also personnel on the ground. I'm wondering what you think about this infusion and this relationship Nigeria has with America when it comes to this instance of insecurity, because it is all related. What are the risks? What are the advantages that Nigeria poses to stand for or against?
Yes, thank you very much. You know, we have already talked about the sovereignty of Nigeria. And I think the armed forces, and particularly the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Defense Staff, have always emphasized this question of sovereignty, that the sovereignty of Nigeria is intact. It's there's no way there's interference. And therefore, it's a good idea that we can actually benefit from technology, from surveillance, from reconnaissance and all this radar equipment that they have, the drones. Recently, we heard that there's a Reaper unit that's coming into Nigeria to support all these efforts. And I think that beyond the question of sovereignty, which is settled, most countries will actually collaborate with others to make sure that this common challenge is nipped in the bud. And like Hashim earlier said, even the terrorist financing is not limited to Nigeria. It's a financial institution that is global that must be monitored and must be tracked to make sure that the source of funding and financing is removed from them, so that they do not have the synergy, they do not have the resources to promote their ideology.
Colonel, everything that you have said sounds brilliant. And I think the question and the queries that I want to believe that the average Nigerian has is that when we do have dialogues like this, everything that you have mentioned are things that are mentioned and called to actions, but we never actually see the implementation of many of the things that you have said. For one, for instance, you mentioned when you gave the answer to Mazino about the fact that in order for things to get better, what are some of the steps we can take to improve that? You mentioned technology. We don't even have to go back to as far as Chibok. If we go back to 2010, like Mazino said, this is not a new thing. So in terms of stabilization, what is it that the government is struggling with to implement these things? We're talking about road infrastructure. Everyone in Lagos now commends the coastal road, meaning we do have the capacity to put together the right kind of infrastructure to make these things avoidable. Where are we missing it, and why is it difficult for us to implement these things now in 2026?
I think the commitment is weak. Beyond providing the funding, because if you look at the budgetary allocation to defense and security, it's quite enormous. We're talking about 17 trillion, and it's going up and up. But the question is, where is the commitment? We have seen here in this country where even government agencies are compromised. We've heard stories about even in the ranks of the military, people selling arms. So it's a question of commitment, really. It's a question of commitment. And I think that the NSA's office should be doing more in terms of, monitoring the implementation of some of these very, very critical, non-kinetic, approach to security in this country.
Right.
The roads are bad. Therefore, you cannot, travel on the road easily. You are trapped on a bad road, and therefore you become a sitting target for terrorists and kidnappers and abductors to take you up. So that's precisely what we need. We actually need to invest on non-kinetic aspect, which has to do with good roads and infrastructure. There must be very, very good governance to the rural areas. You can imagine traveling between one local government and another, and it takes you 3-4 hours due to bad road. The jungle is there. Undergoverned. These are the issues. So we must, the answer to ungoverned species is govern the space. How do you govern the space? Put infrastructure there, put government activities there, let local government work properly. empower the local government to reach the nook and crannies of their own jurisdiction. These are some of the things that we should be doing. And if you do that, there will be more trust in local government. Put the local government in proper perspective and give them the powers to govern their spaces, to occupy those spaces, to be able to develop those rural areas in a way that even jobless youth that will be, prone to, radicalization, become very, very free with government and more, citizen-friendly than what it is today.
All right, then. Lastly, now, I want us to look at the partnerships that Nigeria is venturing into when it comes to the agencies and security infrastructure that is needed. Mazino did make mention about boots on ground when it comes to the United States and the drones. However, in the report that we got back from presidency, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did mention that one of the reasons why he was in the United Kingdom was because he also wanted to have conversation around the security and how the United Kingdom can partner with Nigeria with regards to this situation. Are we having the right kind of conversations and getting the right kind of partners when we are looking at the security situation in Nigeria? Because, I mean, I'm not sure if the UK would be the adequate ally when it comes to situations like this. What's your take on that? The partnerships that we are venturing into.
Yes, I think the challenge Nigeria faces is geopolitical. There's multipolarity in terms of whom are you relating with? Is it China? Should it be Turkey? Should it be Israel? Should it be America? So that's the challenge. Should it be even Russia? Don't forget that even in Africa today, there are so many Russian forces, they call them African Corps, the former Wagner, they are everywhere. And therefore, most countries, particularly Nigeria, should always be very, very careful about playing into the hands of this geopolitics where you say, oh, it's aligned to China, you are aligned to Turkey, you are aligned to Israel. These are the challenges that I think we face. To be able to, get this thing right, we must actually choose our friends carefully. Otherwise, it will boomerang and create more problems for us. And as you can see, what is happening with Donald Trump and his utterances and his association with people and all the rest of them, Nigeria has to be very, very careful in terms of whom they relate to, whom they seek support from, and all that.
What might happen if we are not very, very careful, especially in the instance regarding the United States?
Yes.
What might happen? Please elucidate.
Yeah, what might happen is a question of sovereignty. Like we said, sovereignty. Nigerians cherish their sovereignty a lot. Nigerians will not want control from, powers outside Nigeria. And that's the challenge we have. If you continue to allow foreign, participation in our security architecture, we risk that question of sovereignty. Sovereignty in disguise, meaning that before you take decisions, you must consult those allies abroad. And Nigeria will never accept that kind of a situation. So that's even providing intelligence can backfire. We can see how what's playing out in Iran, where a lot of their leaders are killed as a result of intelligence that is available to foreign powers. And so Nigeria should not at any time cede their sovereignty, neither should they cede their intelligence to foreign powers. Otherwise, it can have a very, bad effect on Nigeria.
Colonel Ademola Lawal, we want to say thank you very much for joining us, sir. Also saying thank you to Dr. Salahuddin Hashim, who joined us earlier. Unfortunately, the networks had to release him. Thank you for having this very intelligent conversation about intelligence on the Nigerian security situation and, of course, the rankings or ratings that came out from last week. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good. Yeah,
Look at you. Intelligent conversations about intelligence.
Yeah. Well, security is not static. It adapts whether you like it or not. And if the response does not evolve at the time pace, well, the gap only widens. So we must try and nip this in the bud. Do stay with us. We've got more conversation, at least an hour to go here inside of Breakfast Extra. We'll be back.
In our big story this morning, a fresh wave of debate is sweeping across African football again, following a controversial decision by the CAF, also known as CAF, that has triggered strong reactions across the continent, from questions around scheduling and venue decisions to concerns about the fairness and governance. Many stakeholders are asking whether African football is being managed with the transparency and consistency that it demands.
Yes, indeed, but this goes beyond football. The conversation is beginning to mirror larger global dynamics where politics and economics and also influence intersect with sports. Recent international commentary, including remarks tied to global leadership, has only amplified the sense that African football is operating within a broader geopolitical space. And in that space, decisions carry more weight than, just ordinary policies. And the outcome, well, if they match. Joining us now is Wally Scott, sports journalist. He's been here before, friend of the house. You'd often see him in the game, but now you're out of the game in Breakfast Extra. Scott, let's talk about this whole thing. What's happening here? Because yes, I do see a seeming political nature to the entire conversation that's been happening, or the argument rather. So first of all, create the scenario for us, if you can storify.
First of all, it's now season. I feel like throwing up talking about it, because the truth be said, there's this article 82, 83, 84, and all those three articles are like 6 and half a dozen to me, because they mean the same thing. If you walk out of a competition or a match, you're not allowed back.
Who walked out? Why did they walk out? Let's first of all establish that. Why did they walk out in the first place?
Now, first of all, let me get a background, a foundation on this. Mm-hmm. When Arab countries have a competition, doesn't have to be football, could be anything. They want to win at all costs. And Morocco naturally hosted to win. Mm. And so, first of all, a goal was disallowed against Senegal. But Senegal luckily got an early goal. And there were poor calls from the officiating. And the Senegalese felt like this is all against us. As in, yes, the crowd is against us, but so is the officiating. So they all walked off. But Sadio Mane, the captain, remained on the pitch, urging the teammates to come back to the field of play. But the truth be said, the article, like I said, 82, 83, and 84, to me now, are like 6 and half a dozen, because it says you can't allow that team to come back onto the pitch of play. Okay. You automatically give 3 points to the other team, 3 goals to them, and they win the trophy.
The captain, however, remained. That's one bit of the story.
The team walked off.
I'm going to come back.
There's a team of 11 players.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to that. That he remaining on the pitch is one instance we have to take into account here, and very important. However, there is also that political nature to this whole thing. When you call Moroccans Arabs, there's a question mark there. Are they really Arabs is one question. However, now, how can you already award this and then take it back is another question. Has it ever happened in history?
I started the discussion with it's nauseating, because the memories, mm-hmm. the euphoria, mm-hmm. the pictures, the joy of winning is already with Senegal. Yeah. So if you want to give the trophy back to Morocco now in a boardroom meeting, nice, isn't it? It seems very nice, but it seems very nauseating, like I said earlier. Ashraf Hakimi is a player in the Moroccan national team, and his mother said, do not go back and take that medal and that trophy. It's disgraceful to our family. That's one family talking. The Moroccans are known to be very proud people, and I don't think half the Moroccan community want that trophy back. As far as they're concerned, Senegal have won it. The referee allowed them back into the pitch of play, concluded the match. Now, there's a question now. Did the referee know about the Article 82 that he exists? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't, the other officials, did they know that if you walk out on a competition now, you can now see Guinea coming out and making a joke of themselves, saying things like in 1976, Morocco walked out on them, mm-hmm. and they decided their trophy too. That's laughable, because mm-hmm. honestly, in 76, that article did not exist. Mm. Now it does. But has
there been any occurrence in between 1976 and this one where any team walked out?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But the truth be said, now you started earlier, or I think she started earlier, about the political nature, innovation behind all of this. Now, AFCON was supposed to be hosted, the Women's African Nations Cup. This hurts me personally, because I'm a major leader of fighting for the women. That's me. That's my thing. And when they initially disqualified, they postponed the AFCON. I was like, why always the women? Mm-hmm. And they are the ones that make us proud. I'm talking about as a Nigerian now. Our women always make us proud. They won the Nations Cup for the 9th time, this was the 10th time, 9th time, and we picked them up in something that looked like a pure water truck. But our men will now say they don't want this bus. This bus is not fine. The AC is not cool. And we do them well and they don't make us proud. But the girls always make us proud. Basketball, football. Now, you've postponed it. Now, we went to Mosepe, Patrice Mosepe, who happens to be the CAF president, and said, listen, guy.
You're just singing hooks in the corner.
I'm coming to you. I'm still coming to you because it affects you. I'm coming to you. But you know, he happens to be the CAF president. Billionaire businessman. As far as I'm concerned, fantastic in business. Fantastic guy, one-on-one, lousy in managing sports, if you ask my opinion.
He wants to run for president. This
is my opinion, you know. No, he could do well as the president of the country, but as managing sports is out of it for me. No for me. Now, he wants to host the AFCON, which has been postponed. And he runs to South Africa, his country. Puts all the money involved, but the South African guy said, listen, they are professionals, obviously. I praise those guys. The FA in South Africa, that guy, it's too short to make us do this thing. With all the money in the world, guy, if you want us to do a world-class thing like we did in the World Cup 2010, it's not going to work like this. Go back to Morocco and beg them. Since the facilities are still there, everything is still there, just finish hosting the AFCON, they can actually host the AFCON. And then they run back to Morocco. And I'm sure, unfortunately, I'm sure in the boardroom, Morocco must have said, good, we'll host it for you guys.
So I have a question.
Everything is still there, but
I do have a question. I do have a few questions with regards to some of the points that you have made. Now, before we go back to the women, let's look at this specific one, and then I'll come to the women. Again, you made mention of the fact that there's an article that was there, and the article clearly states that the minute a team walks off, the game ends immediately. 3 points are awarded to the other team, and it's a no-brainer. Now, let's look at the fact that in as much as Moroccans are saying, oh, well, we don't want it, they're the ones that filed for the
officials.
Yes, the officials filed and said, you need to review this thing, because I guess that at that point, they understood what the article was. Maybe they didn't. They just wanted to contest it. Does this article still stand? Because remember, it's not Senegal's fault or anybody's fault if the referees are not properly educated. Because I want to believe that when you put someone on the pitch, all the rules and regulations, bylaws, and the clause should be enforced and enacted per time. Look at it now. The AFCON ended in December. This was December. We are literally approaching
60 days today after the game.
So the game, they came back. The ref blew the whistle, and Senegal won. Is it lawful for them to want to pull out these articles now, when the articles were supposed to have, the decision was supposed to have been made then and there, to say once you get off pitch, the whistle is blown, 3 points awarded, the game is over?
You know, I said that earlier. I said that it's either the referee did not know of the article, or the other officials could not tell him. Because the truth is, like we say in Africa, the referee's decision is final.
All right, which is well and good, but now we see that, then it means the problem is on CAF's side, because CAF did not properly give the right orientation to their referees. So
CAF can always tell you the referee should have known. And in law, ignorance is not an excuse. They are saying, I don't know what CAF is saying, but I'm only saying that CAF might be saying that the referee should have known. But like we say, the referee's decision in a match is final. He let them back on. He let them...
So coming back to the fact that the captain was still on the field, doesn't that...
No, the captain and the points actually left.
He actually left.
To go and get them.
Just for a brief moment. You know, he actually left the pitch, went to the tunnel, called them back. He came back on the pitch again, say like in a minute or less than 2 minutes, came back and then urged them to come on. The referee let them come on. And started the game again.
Morocco even wants to go and plead with them to come back on.
Exactly. So the truth be said, if anyone is to blame here, yes, you can say CAF because they are the body. But the truth is, the referee and the officials bear the brunt here. The whole thing boils down to Senegal deserve their trophy. It's theirs. The referee should not have called them back or allowed them back on the pitch of play. Allowed is the word. Allowed them back on the pitch of play, considering Article 82. Obviously, the referee, the officials, and at that point in time, CAF did not realize that article existed. I think Morocco, when they went to file their their whatever petition, realized they could actually work with that article.
Yes.
So I think it must have been Morocco who actually dug that up and said, we didn't work on this. We should have worked on this. Because the irony is that every Moroccan football player don't want that trophy anymore.
So politically, what will happen?
They feel they've lost.
Politically, what will happen if they do get the trophy? What will happen to?
No, they've been awarded the trophy already.
So,
No,
they haven't.
Senegal have approached CAS. All things being equal by, well, we sports analysts who've been doing this for a while, I conclude that there's a large possibility it will be revoked. They will not give Morocco the trophy.
Okay.
But let's assume.
So yes. So assuming that Morocco does get that trophy, what's going to happen politically in the world of African football? Could there be a protest by other nations, and what form would it take?
No, I heard. I think I read it this morning or last night. There's a Libyan club, either Libya or Egyptian club, who have said they will never get involved in any CAF competition anymore. And we're going to see more of this.
African countries not wanting to participate.
Many more. You know,
what does this mean for CAF if African countries don't participate?
They lose their respect, they lose their integrity.
Respect, what else?
This is not even where I'm going to.
Okay.
There's a particular company, I don't know if I can say that on the show, it's called Total. It's a French company. And they are the major sponsors of the CAF Nations Cup. And we're hearing that they are in a meeting right now, as at 2 o'clock last night Nigerian time, they were still in the meeting.
So that's revenue about to be lost.
They want to actually come out, pull out of sponsoring the competition.
That's respect,
which means,
that's revenue.
And that's just one company. That's the major one. We still have the small, teeny ones that are going to actually back out too. If CAF lose their integrity, then they lose sponsors. And they can't depend on Musepe's billions.
I was about to
How long will he spend that for? You know, he's done well so far. Because we heard that he has raised the money for CAF competition, he has raised the money for AFCON, and that's a large amount of the money is coming from him for now, until he can make more money. How long will he spend his money for? You know, that's the truth. So the truth be said, they will lose sponsors, CAF will lose integrity and all that.
Now let's come to, go ahead. Ladies first.
Sorry. I wanted us to move, Mazin. I don't know if your question is still in line with this, but I did want to move to the women.
No,
Were you moving there?
Go on. Women are important.
All right. So moving on to the women now, two things. Like you said, Patrice Motsepe does have the infrastructure and the financial capital to, I don't want to use the word veto or manipulate, but to rub hands and, you know, with the right kind of people. My question is, looking at the fact that there was a lot of controversy surrounding the men's AFCON game that took place in Morocco, many people were not happy with the treatment that other African nations received, of course, the refereeing and all of that. What was the reason for, I don't know if you can enlighten us, the reason for the postponement of the women's section and why Patrice Motsepe felt the need to perhaps move it to South Africa? The
truth is, did you ever hear that there was going to be a particular venue for the AFCON before now? No. Nobody knew a venue. So I think the CAF were actually expecting that Morocco will do it for them. And I don't know if in the board meeting, not here, not in public, but I think Morocco must have accepted. And I think part of the condition was, give us our cup. And I think that's why this drama is happening right now.
Interesting
because nobody ever, well, till now, I had never heard a venue for the AFCON competition until the postponement. I'm suspecting that it must have been Morocco. Help us do it since you already have the facilities.
But since you have the facilities involved.
Okay, guys, we can do it. Why not? Give us our trophy.
Yeah, very interesting. I
think that's why this drama is happening. Unfortunately, you know, the truth be said, the truth honestly be said, this has always happened. I have been to a competition, a qualifier for Nigeria, and it was in Algeria. And we were housed, the media was housed in like 100 meters away from the hotel. But our players, Joseph Yobo and the rest of them were housed upstairs. And there was a party downstairs and it went all night. So our players could not sleep all night. That is how far the North Africans would go to get a win. They will do everything to win. The only thing that takes the shine off this particular petition is the fact that the footballers themselves don't want the cup anymore, don't want the medal anymore.
Scott, we have to end the conversation, but I wanted to quickly ask about preferential treatment and political influence here. But I think you also just touched on that one regarding when you say, hey, give us the cup and then we could do that. But regarding preferential treatment, how guilty is CAF in past, I don't want to say guilty, What are the similar occurrences that might have happened that would point to a system where preferential treatment is given to certain countries regarding maybe winnings or...
CAF has always been the cabal.
They've preferred which countries?
I've always called them the mafia. When the Cameroonian was the CAF president, Cameroon had all the influences in the world. They were winning all their matches, they were getting officiating decisions on their side and everything. It's always been like that. And it's unfortunate. But this time around, it's South African. So I'm expecting South Africa to actually get pressure treatment, but...
We ain't winning nothing.
Exactly.
We ain't winning anything.
When this guy was there, Cameroon was winning practically everything. In fact, they had their way. They had this shirt, armless shirt, that was banned at the World Cup.
I remember that.
Yes, Indomitable Lions.
Yeah.
It was banned at the World Cup, but was allowed in the Nations Cup because the CAF president then was Cameroonian.
It looked like touts at the time. I remember we had plenty of conversations regarding that.
African CAF has always been run like a mafia. Like a cabal.
I do have one more question before I let you go.
Can we take it, however?
I hope we do. You'll just fact check me and correct me on it. I read somewhere that, I'm not particularly sure if it is CAF, but there was a statement that was released now that said women's football teams must be coached by women. How far valid is that?
I haven't heard that. I don't think that's right, if you ask me. But we've heard cases of women footballers complaining after they have resigned or retired from football, saying, yes, we were molested by our coach, we were blah, 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 blah. We prefer to be coached by women. So if you heard that, I think I agree with that totally, because some men are very randy sometimes, if you ask my opinion.
Scott in the studio here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. We're both getting gray. We've been at this for a minute.
Yeah, for a while.
It was a pleasure to have you.
I'm going to be a grandfather soon, bro. I should have gray.
Wow.
I don't want to be at my daughter's wedding with all black. Oh, come on.
Congratulations in advance.
Are you going to be a grandfather soon, Mazino?
Let's end the show. We've still got one little bit, but Wale, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you here. Always very entertaining. We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us. And it's time to go to South Africa. Now, in South Africa, the African National Congress has taken a public stand against what it described as an attack on the country's sovereignty by the United States. Now, the protest underscores a growing sensitivity around foreign involvement in domestic, political, economic matters, particularly in countries with strong liberation histories.
Now, across the continent, this is part of a wider shift. African governments are becoming more assertive about defining the limits of external engagements, even as they remain deeply connected to global systems of trade, security, and diplomacy. The tensions lie in the balance. Now, how do you engage globally without losing control locally? To unpack this, we are joined, or our correspondent was supposed to join us, but is not here. But we do have Colin Malachi, President of African National Congress League. Apologies, actually, we are joined by Zama Kanyise. But before we go to Zama, we do have a package that we will roll.
Under siege not by evidence but by accusations that have long haunted South Africa, not because they are backed by facts but because power has allowed it to lend and shape the narrative, and now South Africa is standing its ground. The ANC is firing back, not with silence but with fierce declaration.
My message to Donald Trump is that he must not think that our democracy is for sale. The people of South Africa at any moment and any time, they are ready to die for their own country and their own democracy. They've done it against apartheid, they'll do it again against imperialism.
Donald Trump must stop bullying us as the country. For that reason is that we came far from whatever the apartheid that gave us. So Donald Trump abuse South Africa and Africa as a whole.
The first report came from the United States, selectively accusing with words that South Africa says it's nothing short of insulting. They say Washington has crossed the line into imperial bullying, and South Africa is asking and demanding to be left alone.
President Trump must mind his business. We will mind our own business. And we know that the majority of Americans are with us. Reverend Jesse Jackson died supporting South Africa and fighting apartheid. And we know even in the Capitol Hill, there are people who know that there is no genocide in South Africa. It only exists in the imagination of the President of the US.
South Africa is a democratic state, and it doesn't deserve the treatment that it's getting from the Western imperialist forces.
Now South Africa unites not just in protest, but in a resolute declaration asking the world to take note. This is a fight for sovereignty, and South Africa says it's ready to defend it. For News Central, Bongani Sisip.
Joining us now is a member of Parliament, Zama Kanyase. She joins us from South Africa. Zama, thank you so much for your time and for joining us.
Zama, thank you for joining. Zama, please, let's start from the beginning once again. What exactly triggered this, reaction from the South African people? Let's talk about the relationship between the US and South Africa of late.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. South Africa, you know the history that we come from. We are a country that is 31 years into democracy after years and years of being under the apartheid law, which essentially meant that South Africans in their entirety didn't share equal rights, and they suffered under a colonization of a special type, where we were colonized by another nation, and they ran our country internally, whilst its people had not been afforded the opportunity to be able to self-determine, elect their own government, and be able to run their own affairs, basically. So every time as the African National Congress and us as the leagues, of course, supporting our mother body, we at any given point see even the slightest possibility of infiltration, of being micromanaged, or being led towards a point where we are not afforded that opportunity to self-determine as a nation. We obviously have to stand up and act on that, because we have citizens that are very patriotic, that understand our history and understand where we want to go. It is the same when we see other nations suffering that fate. We are not a nation that keeps quiet when we see other nations being invaded, when we see other nations not being afforded their right or their right to being a sovereign nation. And that is what triggered this particular People's March that we went under yesterday. That was to say we stood in solidarity with all nations across the world that are currently facing a situation where they are invaded, where their right to self-determine is being challenged.
All right. Now, in response, Zama, by the ANC, of course, ANC did make a response, and we see that via the protest. But is this response, particularly by the ANC, about protecting national interest, or also about, asserting political strength back home?
Well, we are not a nation that is out to be seen as a central figure in politics across the globe. We're in no way a nation that seeks that. We're a nation that, as I've explained before, because of our history, we assume the revolutionary responsibility to not be silent, because you may be silent when other countries are being invaded, when other countries are not being allowed to self-determine, when other countries who are part of the United Nations, by the way, various laws that bind countries that are part of the United Nations, when those laws are being broken and we keep silent. It is about acknowledging the fact that when South Africa was in need of other nations to stand with us during our difficult times, they stood up and they assisted the pressure that led to freeing of South Africa, to our first democratic elections eventually. So when we see other countries going through such challenges, we feel that it is our responsibility to also speak up as other countries spoke for us during that particular period.
Well, Zama, this is the ANC that is protesting. It's the ANC that is speaking up. It's not all of South Africa. So correct me if I'm wrong, maybe educate me. Why is the ANC using this opportunity to speak out?
It was not the ANC
where are the
only,
other parties?
by the way. The march yesterday, I'm going to speak about this in general, but particularly yesterday, we're actually joined by various civil society movements who are apolitical, but who shared the vision that we had about this march. Because remember, this is not just a once-off march, but it's going to form part of our ongoing work, advocacy work, to say that everyone needs to be aware of their surroundings. South Africans need to be aware of what it means if at any given point we would be pushed to a corner where other nations want to determine the direction we should go economically and politically as a country, and what it means for other nations as well when they go through that. So we are beyond the march yesterday, which was ascended by not only ANC members, but also even civil society movements. We are then going to continue engaging our South African citizens to say that, to educate about sovereignty, and then also just to engage with them to say that what are their views about infiltration by other nations determining where we should go economically and otherwise. But the reaction on the social media and everywhere yesterday, we can say it was quite positive, and this is afforded by the fact that, as I stated in the beginning, we have quite patriotic citizens in South Africa, and all of them have slammed the infiltration of Venezuela, the way that the president of Venezuela was eliminated, what has happened in Iran. If you follow the views of South Africans in general, because of the history that we come from, and because there are citizens that are quite, I would say, inclined to issues and follow what is happening internationally, their views have been in line with the things that we have been raising.
To try and save time, I would like to know what exactly South Africa's position is when it comes to the incidents happening in Nigeria and our relationship with the U.S. What are South Africans saying? I'm asking this because it seems the ANC are the only vocal party in South Africa that are raising these issues. And I'd like to know from their standpoint what they think about the issues that are happening in Nigeria, and maybe even what they would have done if this was a South African instance. Nigeria is in bed with America when it comes to providing Nigeria with intel and also infrastructure to try and help solve insurgency. When you look at this from your standpoint as the ANC, what do you think back home there in South Africa?
Well, I want to first correct the part where you say that it's only the ANC. It's not the ANC. Just a few days back in Parliament, there was a debate. They were debating Human Rights Day, and majority of parties that spoke were in solidarity with the people of Iran, were in solidarity with the people of Venezuela. So all the progressive leftist party, or rather, let me say the leftist parties in South Africa, outside of the ANC, have all been speaking in the same voice, that it is something that we should shun, and citizens of all these nations must stand up and defend their own sovereignty. But coming on to the issue of Nigeria, well, ours as the ANC is to advocate for our policies. It is to advocate, our advocacy work should extend to a point where even those in other nations, without standing opposed to them, without trying to say that because they take certain decisions, then it means that they are not progressive or whatever. We believe in the fact that we must push our advocacy work to a point where they see with our lenses as well as the ANC, and we move together. That is what we always wish to do as the ANC. We don't wish to be antagonistic to any nation, but we say that their conscience should lead them to say that each and every country deserves peace, each and every country deserves to self-determine, each and every country deserves to enjoy its own sovereignty.
Right. Zamana, when we look at the ongoing situations between South Africa and the United States, I know that the the ambassador to the United States in South Africa had sat down and made some robust and bold demands to South Africa, abolishing the BEE, abolishing the Kill the Boer. But he did come back later to retract that and make a public apology. Is that a win for South Africa, of course, for the ANC as well? Or what's the atmosphere like now, having seen that he had made that apology?
Anytime anyone tries to speak about reversing our gains as a nation, we will always shun that. We will always call it out, and we will always demand a retraction. But a retraction alone is not enough for us, because we have to work with nations that will effectively move with us as we develop our nation, as we see the developing of Africa as a continent and ultimately the world. So we think that we welcome the fact that they apologized, but we continue to lobby them that they should move with us in terms of trying to reverse the wrongs of the past, because policies like the BBE used to do that. We want them to join us in terms of dealing with facts, because, for example, the issue of the genocide that was pronounced, which was not there in South Africa, all of those were instances that disappointed us as the ANC, and I think as majority of citizens in South Africa. And we want to invite them to come back and work with us in terms of developing our nation and assisting the developing of the African continent and the world, because we all need each other in the end.
Right.
We have minerals that are needed by other countries. We also have minerals we want to, I'm making an example about that, so that trade can continue and all develop our economies. We all need each other as nations, and we are saying that every time there is anything regressive, we should look down upon it, and we should move together with things that are going to help us develop.
Right. Now, Zama, you mentioned the claims for the genocide in South Africa. There's a conversation that is not yet to be had, and I hope it's okay for me to raise this for you. Let's look at the number of white South Africans that decided to take Donald Trump up on the offer of going to the United States for refugee status. It's been in the media lately that they have made the request to come back to South Africa. I've not seen any statements from DIRCO, neither have I seen any statements from the ANC with regards to that. What's our stance on allowing them back into South Africa, given the fact that they propagated the claims that Donald Trump and the White House had made?
Well, for us, it's just another demonstration of how all of this was just a fabrication. And, well, the only thing we can say as the ANC Youth League is that if they are to come back, if they are South African citizens, we are clear that South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. If they're South African citizens, obviously they should be welcomed back. But as the Youth League, we say with caution, they need to be able to take him through a proper assessment, that as they come back, are they coming back to be citizens or to blend in nicely with the rest of the citizens of South Africa, or are they coming back with an agenda? Because we don't know what they've been doing in the US for the past couple of months, and we don't know if the agenda that in the beginning made them to say that they're leaving South Africa because there's a genocide, they don't believe in that anymore. So we are advocating for the fact that they need to be assessed thoroughly by the relevant authorities, and then be welcomed and be monitored when they come back into the country, because anytime the safety of all of the citizens of South Africa should be prioritized, and our intelligence, we have confidence in them that they can be able to assist us rather with that.
Yes, Inam, they're your people. Take them back. Zama, Zama, let's talk about the fact, or let's wonder if this is going to result into any tangible policy shifts in regards to South Africa's relations with the foreign world. Will it?
Well, like I said in the beginning, that it's our hope that everyone joins us in the work that we've been doing as a country. We're a country that is not going to keep quiet and fold its arms when we see other countries being emasculated, being cornered, and being forced to give up their right to self-determination. And we are hoping that more nations are going to join us in speaking up, because if we keep quiet and everyone keeps quiet, one day it will be a turn of other countries as well, and they will have no backup at that point because all other nations would have been made weak. It cannot be that as we progress, as more and as other countries that had previously been had been taken over by the other nations are now free. All of them enjoy democratic rights, and those few that still are under this, we advocate for them to be freed as well and be allowed a chance to elect their own government and form part of governing their own countries. So it cannot be that when we're about to complete this work, and then there is a new attempt to infiltrate other countries again. So we are calling on everyone to join us as South Africa and as the ANC. We stand in calling for an end to infiltration of other nations and an attempt to take away their right to determine and their right to sovereignty.
Zamaka, I say thank you very much for joining us to have this conversation here. We'll continue to follow it and, of course, perhaps maybe even eventually also bring you back on to see where this goes. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. That's it. It's time for us to say goodbye on the show here today. I am disappointed, however. I am disappointed because we don't get to do the strips today, and I had a very interesting one I wanted to show. I don't know if the producers can pull up the one from the Daily Trust, the daughter-father conversation about, I think it's the fuel price or so, if I'm not mistaken. It's a very interesting one where Nigeria is hushing everything up, especially as we draw close to, no, it's not fuel, the insurgency, as we draw close to the elections. Like, oh, there's insurgency, they're not, shh, election is coming.
I told you. I mean, this was something that we had during the discussion earlier, but go ahead.
It seems that every single election cycle that comes through Nigerian politicians always want to hush it and say everything is nice. When the world says, hey, you guys have insurgency, you're like, yes, but it's better than before. But then a ranking comes out and says you guys are number 4th on the terrorism index. So it's very, you know, the other day the president was saying, I've eliminated corruption. And I'm like, no. Not so much. Same thing with insurgency.
Daniel Bola said it was context. It was context. He did not. The way you understood it was not the way that he said it. So there's a half full, half empty. Half full, half empty, Mazino. But
well, unfortunately, we can't do the strips, but maybe next week we might bring a couple of the ones from this week to you because they were very interesting ones. Thank you very much for joining us since yesterday up until today to end the show with us. Do join the crew for tomorrow. The week. Help me out.
English is leaving us.
Englishing.
Join us from Monday, Breakfast Central team.
There we go.
With Olive, Johansson, and Benga. So from us till next weekend. Might be seeing a new face next weekend, but that's for another day. Thank you so much for giving us your attention and your time this weekend. So till next week, have a good one.
Bye-bye.